สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ Last week we talked about the value of solitude, part 1. And to sum it up again real quick, solitude is very important if we wish to learn about how our mind works. And if we decide to set aside some time, a few days a year or so, to really be with yourself, to really be by yourself, cut off social media, cut off the gadgets and technology for a while, cut off needing to interact with, call up, text, or talk to other people, cut off the need to engage in activities with the world, with society for a short while, and just be by yourself. You will really begin to learn so much about the way you behave, think, believe, and react. You'll learn more about the nature of your self-concept, your identity, and how your attachment to them or your identification with them is one of the causes of conflict or suffering. You'll begin to learn that you can never really truly depend on outside external circumstances for happiness. Happiness must be produced from within. It must be created from within. It must not rely on outside circumstance. This is not to say that outside circumstances are not important, but that you don't want to make it everything in your life. You begin to see that suffering is therefore self-produced. You cause your own suffering by the way in which you react to something outside of you, the way in which you react and think about it, process it, give it meaning in a way that you give your power away. For example, if somebody calls you names, insults you, or does something quite mean to you, and you say, I am angry because of what you said, in one sense you are misunderstanding reality, because the reality of it is that our experiences are always produced and created from within. Therefore, if you mistake this and you blame the other person or some outside factor or circumstance or situation for your feeling of anger, then you're looking in the wrong place and you're giving your power away, and therefore you continue to be angry. But if you look inside yourself and consider, wait a minute, what am I doing to cause myself to be angry or upset? Do I really have to be angry at their words? Just because I don't like it does not mean I have to be a victim to it or be out of control or be angry at it, right? So therefore, part of it, if not all of it, is actually due to my perception and reaction to the outside external circumstance. As the saying goes, life is not about what happens to you, but how you choose to respond. But I want to continue this discussion and also present the other important insight that one would begin to cultivate and realize if we really take time to be in solitude. And that is, you will begin to see very quickly how much of the content, the inner chatter, the inner voice in your head, in your mind, you'll begin to realize how much of it gets recycled over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you begin to see that a lot of the content, the chatter, the noise that goes in on your mind is also coming from the average, if I may say it that way, the average of the social groups that you choose to be a part of, that you choose to spend time with, that you choose to spend time in. So you begin to see that it is very important to choose your social circle wisely. You begin to see that the content of what goes on in your mind over and over again has a lot to do with the news that you watch, the drama that you watch, and how, say, in the case of the news, that they're meant to sensationalize it, and they're meant to get your attention by getting a reaction out of you, an emotional reaction out of you. And this generates some sense of feeling despair or fear or helplessness or powerlessness, because it's the easiest way to get your attention. This is an example. But then you also realize that what you see it really influences the way you think. It really influences your attitudes, your perceptions, and your belief systems. And most importantly, you begin to understand that it's actually very difficult to truly think for yourself. Most of these thoughts, attitudes, and perceptions and beliefs, in other words, are just taken on from our average of our social surrounding, our environmental conditioning, our social conditioning. Whether you intend to or not, or realize it or not, these things have a much more bigger impact and influence on the content that goes through your mind than you may have previously realized. And so this is a very interesting fork in the road to come across, because you begin to realize that indeed, in one sense, it is almost as if we take on the average of the conversations that we hear in society, and we take it on as part of us, as part of our belief systems. And you, in that case, you've never really chosen it for yourself. You've never really thought about those things on your own. You've never really considered why you even take that position in the first place. Even the content that I do in this video, a lot of it I never thought about on my own. I learned from other teachers. And it's humbling to realize that these things become your frame of reference, and they become the lens from which you use to look at your world, your reality, your environment, your life. And so it is humbling because you begin to see that it is so much more, so much easier to just go with the flow and just take on the attitudes, perceptions, judgments, or demonizations of the average and just continue to parrot those things. That's why Carl Jung said, thinking is difficult. That is why most people judge. Thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. Right? So solitude will begin to show you this. Because if you contemplate or self-reflect in your time spent in solitude, you will really see how much of the stuff that you believe was never really thought of by yourself on your own. This is not to say it's a bad thing, but you want to understand the impact this has on your life. You want to see that in one sense, a lot of the way in which you react to things has come from just conditioning, repetition, right? You've been trained to react in that way. You've been trained to look at that thing in that way. You've been trained to demonize that group of people in that way. You've been trained to demonize that sort of behavior in that way. You've been trained to label this and that, this and that, this and that in whatever way it is for the sake of the conversation. So what do we do? Well, first of all, now that you know, you can begin to take back power. Really question your perspectives. Really question your beliefs. Understand why you hold those perceptions, those beliefs, those opinions, those attitudes, and ask yourself, how does this perception serve me and the people around me? What does it cost me? How does it cost me and the people around me? Right? And really begin to challenge the ones that you know in your heart is quite limiting or unhelpful. And how can you adopt a way of thinking that is more beneficial, more helpful, more empowering, that encourages you and helps you to develop a sense of control within, meaning it gets you to realize how much personal power you really have, as long as you stop giving your power away by being reactive to outside circumstances. And that means taking responsibility for your thoughts, emotions, feelings, perceptions, attitudes, belief systems, and behavior. And the more responsibility you take, the more empowered you become. Because you chose that path by yourself. You become more authentic and true to who you are. You're able to consider on your own merit what you think is right, what you think is wrong. And it helps you to also lead life in a more light-hearted way. Because if you understand these mechanisms happening within you, then by definition, you can also see it in other people as well. And as I said previously in last week's video, you'll be more inclined and willing to forgive. You'll be more inclined and willing to be more tolerant, to be more accepting. And most importantly, you'll think twice before jumping to conclusions and judging others. If you see how much of an influence your social circle, especially your inner circle, those that you spend most time with, the content or the news or the media or YouTube or whatever it is that you spend most time watching or reading or listening to, when you begin to realize how much influence this has on the content in your mind and therefore your belief systems, the more humbling it will teach you to become. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And this work of contemplation and self-reflection in solitude will help us to think twice, will help us to be more patient, will help us to be more wise, because we can understand a situation and play with that context or situation from many different perspectives. And guess what? The ability to look at something from multiple perspectives or to entertain different ways of thinking about it or different attitudes or different belief systems or value systems without needing to buy into it or without needing to feel repulsion from it or to feel repelled by it or to feel disgusted by it, that is the mark of a truly mastered mind. The ability to consider something from many possible perspectives without the need to be emotionally reactive, without the need to believing it right away, buying into it right away, but just seeing it for what it is and appreciating the pros and cons of different positions and therefore appreciating why different positions are important to some, why our attachments and our identification with those positions actually influence the way we react to things. And this will humble you. This will help you to understand yourself and other people much more. And from this place, you'll really begin to live life in a much more skillful way, and a light-hearted way. And it becomes much more fun because you truly take back power and control of your experiences. And you begin to feel that I am creating my own experience, and therefore I know how to choose the things that I know work for me and are authentic to me without having to encroach upon the rights of others. And I hope this sheds some light on how solitude can really help one to self-reflect. And guess what? Once we learn to silence our mind, a lot of the answers will come. If we learn to contemplate and self-reflect and ask powerful questions, powerful answers will follow. And your mind has the ability to do that. We just take it for granted or overlook it in our normal, busy, daily routines of life. So I do hope these two videos provide some value for you and encourages you to see the value of solitude and begin to do the practice with me as we learn to work on ourselves and actualize ourselves. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. If you like the video, please do like and share. I will see you next time. สวัสดีครับ